Good afternoon. Welcome. I'd like to call this meeting of the West Haymarket JPA to order. To my left is Councilwoman Tammy Ward, and to my right is Regent Tim Clare. I'm Mayor Lyran Gaylor-Baird, and this is a public meeting subject to the Open Meetings Act, a copy of which is posted in the back of our chamber. To proceed, our clerk Casey will call each item on the agenda. Staff will then come forward and present information on those items. We will take public comment on each item, and if each speaker could please state their name and address for the record, and note that testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker, that will help us keep the meeting moving along. With that, Casey, would you please call the first item?
Approval of the minutes from the JPA meeting held April 20th, 2022.
Second. Approval of the minutes moved by Claire, second by Ward. Any discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Ward?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
Gaylor-Baird?
Yes.
Motion carried 3-0. The next item is approval of the minutes from the JPA special meeting held June 13th, 2022.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Ward, second by Claire. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ward?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
Gaylor-Baird?
Yes.
Motion carried 3-0. The next item is approval of the minutes from the JPA special meeting held July 18th, 2022.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Ward, second by Claire. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ward?
Abstain.
Claire?
Yes.
Gaylor-Baird?
Yes.
Motion carried 2-0. Next, we have approval of the payment register for the April through July 2022 and review of the expenditure report as of July 31st, 2022.
Good afternoon, board members. Lynn Heaton, City Finance Department, and it's my pleasure to be with you here today for my very first West Haymarket JPA board meeting. So I am here today to present the payment register and the as well as the operating for the last quarter. So I will give you the highlights and be glad to answer any questions that you might have about the payment register. So starting with, we have $33,804.32 to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln for the annual settlement of the UNL rent per the lease and operating agreement. We have $102,944.75 to City of Lincoln for the third quarter FY22 city staff costs, as was adopted for the 21-22 JPA operating budget. We have $6,998,543.51 to Union Bank and Trust Company for the semi-annual bond interest payments. This one was interest only. $585,115.60 to the Union Bank, to City of Lincoln parking for March 22 through May 22 for JPA parking garage management. $61,980.50 to Theatrical Media Services for replacement of a sound amplifier at PBA. To District Energy Corporation for April through July 2022, $917,958.35. $663,129.59 of that was billed back to customers. That's at a level of 72.2% of those costs. Paid to SMG for the FY21 operator incentive fees that were earned by SMG, $75,176. And finally, among the highlights, $493,475.07 to PBA for a number of things, including arena repair, maintenance, and minor concession equipment, $250,000 for fourth quarter FY22 sponsorships, and finally, $150,000 for fourth quarter FY22 operating increment. Are there any questions? Thank you.
All right, following that presentation by Mr. Heaton, welcome to your first meeting of the JPA. We would take any public comment on this item.
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs of Lincoln Government. It looks like PBA has almost 500,000 requests for whatever, but there was a loss in for the year. So we have concerns as taxpayers about this, and in the new budget, it looks like they're planning on an increase in the overall budget, and then also still losing on labor allegation to events as a loss. So we're wondering where the $2 million went from the feds for the pandemic, and has that led to the loss showing the end of the fiscal year?
I may have to, again, Lynn Heaton, City Finance Department. I may have to ask where you're referring to a loss for the year.
Well, it says the annual.
Sure, that was the budget at the beginning of the year, so that's that final column of the Pinnacle Bank Arena income statement.
Okay.
But the actual year-to-date through June 30th shows $1.7 million of retained earnings, a net income, or a gain, if you will, of $1.6 million. So very strong position.
Yeah, but this says 250,000 loss.
That was at the beginning of the year. That was the annual budget at the beginning of the year, so that would have been last year at this time. Now, through year-to-date actual, is actually showing a net income or net gain of $1.6 million.
Okay, so the first column is what
That's
shows
what-
on the books for June the 30th.
Correct. That's the experience so far this year through June 30th.
Okay, and that was during the pandemic?
Oh,
They
well-
were making money?
That is since, that would be since September 1st of last year.
Okay,
So certainly, I think some could argue the pandemic is ongoing, but certainly things have improved greatly.
okay, so if they got 2 million from the feds, which isn't shown here, but was given to them, is there actually a loss of 300,000 or so?
So was the 2 million last? 2 million was last year. So that was last year. So the 2 million from the feds would not be taken into account in the number you see there for this fiscal year.
Did not occur in 2022.
Correct. It was last fiscal year.
Okay, so there was a carryover, a positive carryover, or a loss?
I believe there was a retained earnings at the end of last year. So yes, some gain of last year.
Okay. So with the million, they still had 1,711,000.
So yes, if you're
And-
looking at that first column there,
Yeah.
you can see that the retained earnings has grown to $1.7 million.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, would anyone else like to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion on items.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Claire, seconded by Ward. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, please call the roll.
Ward,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Motion carried 3-0.
Can I ask one other question? Were you gonna show some other information with respect where?
Yeah, the slides there that I emailed you would be in the budget presentation item.
On number 8? Okay.
Okay,
All
okay.
right.
All right, I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
just
that's
wanna make
okay.
sure.
Okay, would you please call the next item?
The next item is WH 22-7, resolution to approve a right of entry agreement for parking between the West Haymarket JPA, City of Lincoln, and Cotswold Management, allowing Cotswold Management to enter onto city and JPA property within West Haymarket 4th Edition until Cotswold completes rehabilitation and construction activities on its adjacent property.
Good afternoon, Chris Connolly, City Law Department, 555 South 10th Street. This is a continuation of the Cotswold project that's ongoing on 7th Street, and they will need expanded access for trucks and other equipment to get to their property on the north and west sides of the property. Board previously granted a right of entry to a portion of the property that is basically at 7th Street as an end street. And so now we're requesting that it be expanded to allow more or better entry to the Cotswold project. It would be for 3 years or until the end of the Cotswold project, whichever happens first. And it is, we are recommending that this be approved. Do you have any questions?
Don't see any questions. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on item 7?
Jane Kinsey with Rott's Dogs. What is the Cotswold? What is that exactly?
Cotswold is a private company that is doing their own development on their own property, and what they're asking for is access across JPA property so their trucks that are doing the construction work can get to their property.
Okay, they're doing what kind of construction?
They're expanding their building,
Painting their building?
expanding it.
Oh, expanding, okay. And so is it like, who owns that
Well, that's the name of the company.
company?
Cotswold.
Okay. And that building has a name also?
It's the Cotswold building. They are just taking the building that's currently there and are expanding it.
Okay. And where is that located from you said adjacent, which direction?
From 7th and N, it is south. It is on the south side of that.
Okay. And that's for 3 years then?
3 years or until they're done with their project, whichever is
Done.
shorter.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Can I get a motion on item
So
7?
moved.
Second. Moved by Claire, second by Ward. Any discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Ward,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 3-0. The next item is resolution to approve the proposed operating budget and capital improvement program for the West Haymarket JPA for September 1, 2022 through August 31st, 2023.
Let's see if I can understand how this technology works. There we are.
Make that a little bigger.
I wonder if they were able to do that. Oh, thanks, man.
Perfect.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll go ahead and start with on the revenue side of the FY23 operating budget and capital improvement program. The slide that's on the screen is a summary, pie chart summary of the FY23 budget. You can see the total is $33.7 million. It is the vast majority of that, or 59%, or not vast majority, but majority is certainly occupation taxes at $20 million. just a little over 20. This is a 2% increase over the projected current fiscal year total. So it is based on, while we're not haven't concluded the FY22, we do have an estimate of FY22, and it's a 2% increase over that dollar value. And I'll have more information. In fact, maybe now is the time to show slide on the occupation taxes. This particular one is actually a historical plus projections. So for the current fiscal year, the estimated amount was $17.5 million. We are on pace to collect $19.7 million this fiscal year. That is a 25% increase over FY21 and 12.7% greater than the original budgeted amount. That also represents a 12% increase from the pre-pandemic value of FY19, which is a roughly 3.5% average annual increase. So I believe that the occupation taxes have bounced back very nicely.
So what you're saying there is rather than looking back to last year, which we were still in the middle of COVID, and the year before where we were still in COVID, you went back to when pre-COVID.
Correct.
To compare apples to apples, and we're ahead, average 3% per year.
That's right.
3.5% per year.
Yep, the average annual rate of growth is over 3%.
That's really good.
The estimate for FY20 is going to put us at about over 2035 equivalent, if you will, for against the original projections. And so I know the board has heard that number a number of times, that compared to the original projections. So I'm moving on to the other revenue items. Intergovernmental revenue, which represents the payments from the IRS for the JPA's Build America bonds and Recovery Zone Economic Development bonds, the interest subsidies, that is budgeted at $3.5 million. This is net of a sequester that the federal government implemented back in 2017. Rental income, which is premium seat revenues based on contracted amounts, and also PBA and Amtrak station facility rental. The total of rental income estimate and budgeted is almost $2.9 million, $2,870,144. Parking revenues paid to Urban Development Parking Services, budgeted at $3,090,000. This is a 2% increase over the projected amount for the current fiscal year as well. And miscellaneous revenues, representing sponsorship revenue payments under contract with Learfield IMG College, that's budgeted at $1,262,000. So again, total revenues are budgeted for FY23 at $33,739,156. Any questions on revenue? All right, I will turn your attention to the expenditure budget. Miscellaneous contractual services includes purchase of Husker basketball tickets at budgeted at $270,000 for the suites and loge boxes, $393,491 for City of Lincoln staff. That is actually lower. It's a tick down from the $411 budgeted for FY22. Parking deck management services budgeted at $1,994,207, and this is based on budget figures provided by City Parking Services. Turning to thermal heating and cooling, this is the charges from the DEC for service to the JPA customers. This is at $3,460,000. And this cost is based on a preliminary estimate of rates from the DEC. There is some work ongoing from the DEC to evaluate potential valve repairs, and so that the cost of that is that was provided to us by DEC is incorporated into that. So other building maintenance is budgeted at $416,724. And this is made up of a number of different maintenance agreements and annual inspections, miscellaneous repairs. But that total is $416,724. And I'll turn to the capital outlay now. Capital outlay for equipment at PBA is budgeted at $1.4 million. I actually did want to point out that much of the capital outlay is carryover from amounts or from projects that were approved in the budget last year but not completed. And so many of those projects, because they had not been completed, have been carried over and are now again budgeted and proposed for FY23. But of the budget for equipment, $400,000 for replacement of point of sale terminals, $480,000 for Internet Protocol TV replacement. Turning to building capital improvements for PBA, those are budgeted at $2,435,000, and those include the following: of $1.4 million for replacement of the existing ribbon board, as well as addition of a second ribbon board. Corner scoreboards, be replacement of the corner scoreboards, that's budgeted at $400,000. The arena ramp and elevated plaza concrete repairs is also budgeted in that $2.4 million figure. That portion is $300,000. So again, that's the building capital improvements, a total of $2.4 million. Grounds improvements are budgeted at $769,600, and those include the following: Block 4 streetscape for $475,000 per the Canopy Park redevelopment agreement. BNSF final parking pavement project, $200,000, and the West Haymarket District landscaping for $70,000. So that would conclude the capital improvements. And then finally, I will discuss the debt service payments. Debt service are budgeted at, I'll show a graphic for that. Debt service payments are budgeted for FY23 at $23,568,879. The subsidies that partially offsets this, and the subsidies you'll recall are on the revenue side, are $3.5 million. So the net debt service for FY23 is budgeted at $20,050,700. And then finally, the total expenditures budgeted for fiscal year 23 are $37,356,163. And again, here's what you can see on the your screen is the debt service schedule, the principal and interest payments going out to 2046. You'll note that in FY21, 2 years ago, last year, the debt service schedules did have the principal payments ramping up, and they will be a significant grow to be a significant portion of the annual debt service payments. Just as a supplement to that, this next graph.
Can you put that graph, that other one, back up for just a second?
Yeah, principal and interest payments, yeah.
Would it ever make sense if the trend continued to take some of that extra cash to try to, I mean, obviously, or to pay the loan or the bonds off? That's obvious if there's no prohibitions against the call, but if you could, would it make sense to try to do that?
We'd certainly consider that. I mean, I'd want to visit with a number of my colleagues and assess sort of the outlook for the JPA.
Sure would appear none of us will be on the board at that time, or at least I'm not going to be on the board at that time. But it sure looks as though sometime down the road there'll be excess cash, assuming that the cash would, continue on the trend that it has the last 11 years. Seems like it would look very possible to paying off that debt.
Yeah, and here you can see, as just shows the outstanding balance on the bonds outstanding over that time period, and certainly by 2046, as scheduled, those would be completely paid off. And what I'll supplement all of that with then would be this projected cash balances graph, which again, taking into consideration all of the current known information and current assumptions, a very strong position for the JPA.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions for Mr. Heaton?
I would say one other thing that I think is important to mention. We talked about some of the improvements that we budgeted for. We did set up a $2 million endowment, and I would encourage Caleb is back there nodding his head that we don't forget about that, to use that for some of the.
Yes, sir. And a number of the projects that are on the CIP list for the upcoming year are intended to be from the endowment. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, will we take any public comment?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs. So it looks like the maintenance for the arena is high. What'd you say, 4 million, something like that?
The maintenance, are you referring to the capital improvement
Yeah.
projects?
Right.
I will say this, the capital improvement projects, many of those projects are projects that have been planned for the arena since its construction. Of course, an arena that's approaching 10 years, we want to make sure that they continue to have, our patrons continue to have a very good experience.
Mm-hmm. But that's still high maintenance. What? For almost 5 million, if you count outlay and improvements. Is that right?
Yeah, the total of the capital outlay is over $4 million, correct?
Yeah, right, okay. So if the JPA, if they did not have help from the JPA, it would be difficult for them to manage the expenses that they have.
Well, in terms of the capital outlay, from the beginning, it's always been that the JPA would be responsible for the capital improvement projects.
Yeah.
As a city-owned arena, that's been the case from the beginning.
Right. So, what can taxpayers expect when the JPA disbands? That they will pick up those kinds of things?
The arena would continue to be a city-owned arena.
And the taxpayers would be paying for that?
The city's finances would fund the arena, correct?
Yeah, from taxpayers. So we can't really, and then besides that, the JPA gave them $600,000 so that they would show less of it'd be about $1.1 million or something like that they actually expensed.
When you say gave them, are you referring to SMG?
Yeah, JPA gave to the arena $600,000.
Right, the $600,000 is the annual operating increment. Again, that's been part of the financing of the arena from the beginning.
Okay, so they're giving them that, and then they're also picking up their bills, like maintenance and equipment and such.
There is a certain number of miscellaneous repairs that are conducted by SMG themselves.
So Really, it's more than 600,000. It's almost 500,000 additional, right? 11?
So which number are you referring to?
On the capital outlay and the capital improvements.
Sure. As we said earlier, the sum of those is more than $4 million for the budget. Again, the board would also have the opportunity, if something happens, to decide not to proceed with any of those improvements, but the budget does provide for the
For it,
over $4
okay.
million.
So it's not set in stone, it can be,
1 minute.
Certainly the board has discretion.
okay. So, a lot of gifts from the JPA to the arena. And 2045, the turns over to the city?
Correct.
We don't know what that will be.
We don't know what will be.
We don't know what the financial situation will be. We're supposed to be coming into a recession right now.
What I'd say is this: is as you see from the charts, the position of the JPA is very strong right now.
Hopefully they can give their excess to the city then when it all runs out. So taxpayers don't have to pick up the bill.
All right, do we have any other folks who would like to testify on this item? Seeing none?
Move approval.
Second. Moved by Claire, second by Ward. Any further discussion? Casey, please call the roll on item 8.
Ward,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 3-0. The next item is WH 22-9, resolution to approve an amendment to a memorandum of understanding between the West Haymarket JPA and Project Control of Texas for construction management services for a term of September 1, 2022 through August 31st, 2023, with costs not to exceed $50,000.
Good afternoon again. This is the annual renewal of the agreement with Project Control. They continue to do an outstanding job in managing various projects for the JPA. The cost will not exceed $50,000 as noted. I believe $14,000 or so was spent last year, and so there was no reason to increase the cap. The one thing that will increase is their individual hourly rates were raised in accordance with the rate of inflation in the Midwest, but that does not change the cap of $50,000. And so I again would recommend approval of this amendment to the memorandum of understanding. Are there any questions?
No questions, thanks. Would anyone like to speak on this item?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs. What was that rate? You said something about the rate in the Midwest.
9.1%.
9.1?
Correct.
That's a lot.
That's what it is.
So it's higher in the coast?
I don't know what it is in other parts of the country, but what I do know is that the rate of inflation in the Midwest, and I can't remember what table they were using, but it's 9.1%.
Okay, so you went with the rate of inflation.
For the
then.
Midwest.
West,
Correct.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none. Entertain a motion on item 9.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Claire, second by Ward. Any further discussion? Please call the roll, Casey.
Ward,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Motion carried 3-0. The next meeting date has been rescheduled to Friday, December 9th, 2022 at 10 a.m. here in council chambers.
I got it.
We'll make a note. All right. Thank you. And with that, we come to the end of our agenda, and I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
I'm just going to keep us here a while. Second.
Moved by Ward, seconded by Claire. Please call the roll.
Ward,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes. We are adjourned. Thank you.